A crown prince was targeted for destruction and nobody had to touch him. If you watch Netflix's dark fantasy series, The East Palace Donggung, the nightmare and 18-year-old, heir walks through majestic pavilions surrounded by hundreds of guards, yet slowly realizes the court is closing in on his mind, sanity, and life. On the surface, it looks like fictional K-horror, filled with dark magic and creeping spirits. But how much of the court conspiracies, forbidden occult curses, and restless phantoms was actually rooted in real Korean history? The deadly succession battles and paranoia depicted in this series were built upon the darkest realities of the Joseon Dynasty. In Korean royal tradition, Donggung was never merely a building. It was the living political designation for the crown prince and his entire domain. This is where the drama collides with real history. Donggung was not a name invented for a fictional palace. It was a real Joseon institution, tied to the person whose survival determined the future of the dynasty. In traditional cosmology, the south belonged to the reigning king, at the center of the realm. The east, where the morning sun rose, represented youth, spring, renewal, and the beginning of a new cycle, the sacred symbol of the future ruler. Because his expansive quarters sat on the eastern grounds of the palace, the title of the domain became synonymous with the heir himself. When the crown prince walks through Donggung, he is the East Palace. When court officials spoke of it in fearful whispers, they spoke of an heir with a permanent bullseye on his back. Everyone knew who he was and where he slept, and rival factions were terrified of him taking the throne. In the Joseon court, a crown prince did not automatically inherit peace. Around him stood rival princes, powerful maternal clans, and entrenched aristocratic factions, controlling the bureaucracy and military. Who lost everything if the crown prince took the throne? The factions, whose private fortunes and political monopolies depended on a compliant ruler. A brilliant, independent king was an existential crisis to their survival. If a young prince threatened the balance of power, the political system around him could turn against him before coronation day. Joseon history gives us an unsettling, real-world example of just how lethal that position could become. Crown Prince Sado. Sado does not prove the existence of ghosts. He was not destroyed by a supernatural curse, nor did he rise as a vengeful spirit. His death reveals how catastrophic the combination of royal authority, factional politics, and internal royal conflict could become. In 1762, amid severe court pressure, Sado was ordered into a wooden rice chest by his own father, King Yongjo, and died there. No demon was necessary. The political machinery of the palace was terrifying enough on its own. Being chosen as the future king did not make you untouchable. It made you the center of the most dangerous crossfire in the kingdom. Sado gives us the historical reality of royal terror. But the drama adds another layer, the fear that an enemy could attack the royal family without ever drawing a blade. That fear brings us to sorcery. In Joseon Korea, you could not simply assassinate an heir with a sword. In a dynastic society governed by ironclad Confucian morality, shedding royal blood was high treason. Under systems of collective punishment, the legal consequences could extend far beyond the accused, threatening relatives and entire households. Open violence was complete political suicide. So how do you destroy an heir without touching him? You isolate him psychologically. You turn his living quarters into a prison of paranoia, letting suspicion, political isolation, or whispered accusations of forbidden curses do the work of a blade. In the East Palace, the curse is overtly supernatural. But did the Joseon court really believe someone could attack the royal family through sorcery? Yes. Historical chronicles describe real accusations involving cursed objects, ritual effigies, and alleged occult practices, deliberately aimed at members of the royal family. Why could something as simple as a carved object become a matter of treason? Because the Joseon state treated attacks on the royal family as direct threats to the political and moral order itself. In court politics, an occult talisman was investigated as an invisible weapon of subversion. When discovered, investigators launched sweeping tribunals, subjecting suspects and shamans to severe interrogation. In a factional court, accusations of sorcery could become politically devastating, turning a supernatural allegation into a lethal weapon against real human rivals. We cannot prove that a supernatural curse ever physically harmed anyone, but historical records prove that people genuinely believed curses worked and factions understood how allegations of the occult could be weaponized to destroy an enemy. What made this psychological terror inescapable? The architecture of the palace itself. The palace created a world where escape from court authority was extraordinarily difficult. Built as a layered compound of walls, narrow corridors, and heavy gates, its exits were bolted, shut the exact moment the evening bell tolled. For the Crown Prince, privacy was an illusion. The room where he slept, the attendants, who dressed him, and the food placed before him were all managed by a rigid court system. That protection was also a trap. The more important you became, the more people were required to surround you, making it harder to know who was truly loyal. The attendant serving your meal or the guard outside your chamber could be allied with a rival faction. Protection itself became the source of paranoia. Behind those locked gates, the palace operated as a closed ecosystem. Trapped inside were young heirs under surveillance. Court, women living under strict palace rules, and eunuchs bound by rigid hierarchy. In the outside world, a family could seek justice from a magistrate. Behind palace gates, authority was absolute. An attendant who saw too much could find themselves trapped inside. A system where speaking out was nearly impossible, left with little ability to challenge the powerful figures who controlled the court. When a powerless human being suffers total injustice without a voice or escape, where does that unavenged agony go? Why does the drama show a palace infested with phantoms? This is where history gives way to folklore and cultural imagination. In Korean cultural tradition, this accumulated mountain of unresolved grief is described through the concept of Han. Han is not proof that the dead literally become ghosts. It is a profound cultural concept describing accumulated sorrow, historical grievance, and the agonizing weight of injustice, never resolved in life. In many Western horror stories, the central question is, how do we destroy the evil monster? But Korean ghost folklore frequently operates on a different emotional logic. Why can't this dead soul leave? Spirits in Korean folklore do not return simply to be wicked. Traditional stories place far more emphasis on unresolved grievance. When a person dies bearing an unbearable burden of Han, traditional lore envisions that sorrow, lingering in the physical spaces of their suffering. That is the cultural imagination. The East Palace transforms into supernatural spectacle. When international audiences watch this series, they see an exorcist wielding a blade, a gifted medium, and a monarch fighting phantoms. But what do these ghosts actually represent? The ghosts are not the real horror. They are the evidence. The real horror is the historical suffering that these spirits represent. Scholars punished for inconvenient truths, attendants silenced in the shadows and lives, consumed by the brutal engine of royal succession. The exorcist strikes down supernatural entities to protect the court. But swinging a cold sword cannot cure the human malice at the kingdom's core. You can cut down a wandering spirit on screen, but you cannot kill the human greed and betrayal that birthed the grievance in the first place. How do we separate the layers of the East Palace? First, the historical reality, the Crown Prince, the political domain of Donggung, the lethal succession struggles, and the profound paranoia were entirely real. Second, the documented historical phenomenon, the court's genuine fear of sorcery, and the weaponization of curse accusations to destroy political enemies are recorded historical facts. Third, the cultural folklore, the concept of Han, and the belief that unresolved injustice anchors the dead to the living world is a traditional cultural framework, not historical proof of spirits. And fourth, the fiction, the literal monsters, magical rituals, and spectral battles are the creative inventions of dark fantasy television. The next time you see a spirit appear inside the royal corridors, do not just ask what kind of monster it is. Ask what happened to the person before they became one. When the Crown Prince walks through Donggung, you are no longer looking at an ordinary haunted palace. You are looking at a place built around the sacred dawn of a dynasty, surrounded by people who had every reason to fear what that dawn might bring. The series did not invent the nightmare. It gave the historical fear a face. Donggung was never merely a palace building. It was a name inseparably tied to the man who had everything to lose, and the true horror was the fact that the living rulers of the kingdom spent generations giving their people every reason to fear what lay behind the palace walls.